Music theory with Microsoft Excel. Modal chords built from notes outside the 7-note collection. In other words, from our Earth analogy, building chords off of the ocean notes, resulting in ocean chords. Part number 3. Get ready and some coffee because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin', and you need Microsoft Excel if you want to be excelling at rockin'. That's what it takes. We are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because we basically built this from a blank worksheet but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build this entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there or just follow along, possibly building the part of the worksheet we're currently working on. If you do have access to this workbook, though, 4 tabs down below, including a very colorful fretboard tab we may refer to, the example tab, in essence, the answer key, practice tab having pre-formatted cells so you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you don't have any of that, that's okay. We're continuing our work in the blank tab where we started from scratch with a blank worksheet, continuing in essence in the blank part of the worksheet, practicing not only our music skills, but our Excel formatting skills as well, for formatting's sake. Let's give a quick recap of our objective and what we have done thus far, what our plan is going forward. We want to be thinking about our chords in a way that's as systematic as possible for writing them down to convey our musical information as easily as possible, as well as be able to code switch possibly with the most standard kind of conventions of writing down the chord information. Just doing this kind of worksheet will really help us to understand the theory, the idea behind the chord construction. What we've done thus far, we listed out our musical alphabet in number format, letter format, the sharps and flats being like an A, B for A sharp, B flat. We then numbered the collection of notes around the key of C, giving a relative perspective, not only choosing the 7 notes given our formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, but also adding the 5 notes, which we're calling the ocean notes, the ones that are outside of the collection, having a 0.5 so that we can refer to them as a relative position to the natural or nodal or modal numbers. We then mapped out all of the modes, and we once again have the normal 7 modes, but then I'm putting the ocean modes in there with a plus in it, saying those are the ones offshore. Those are the Ionian plus, the Ionian Ocean, the Dorian Ocean, the Lydian Ocean, the Mixolydian Ocean, the Aeolian Ocean. The Phrygian doesn't have an ocean because it goes right landmass to landmass, Phrygian to Lydian. We then have the collection of notes in the key of C, noting that these numbering system will be the same for all 12 collections of 7 notes. It'll shift up automatically like copying and pasting in an Excel worksheet. Here's the 7 notes in terms of modal points, which we're going to keep permanent, not scale degrees, not changing them. Here's an abbreviation of those 7 points with just the first 3 note words. Here's the letters that we're giving to each of those modal points. This is going to give us our distance in interval format that we will use within our table. We then looked at the chord construction and compared the standard chord construction to the chord construction that you can name off of the node. In other words, in the key of Ionian, or if you're building off of the Ionian node, typically the extensions that you would use would be a major, major 7, major 9, major 11, major 13. And if you're in the collection of notes of the C, you put a C before it. But I don't want to use a C because that's going to be locking us into one collection of notes. Whereas if I use the relative modal position, either referenced with the Nashville number, in this case 1, or the letter, an I, then all of those chords will be shiftable, rotatable through all of the collections of notes. So that's the idea. So we map that out for the Lydian. Here's the normal convention. Here's the other ways that you can write the chords, which I think is actually more logical, more maneuverable, gives you more information about the context of the song, which is the whole reason that you're writing something down in the first place. There is context. It's like saying you're going to have a letter that doesn't have context. No, it always has context. When you use it, it's going to be in the context of speech. That's why you have the letter. So you want to use it as effectively as possible. Here's the Mixolydian, Aeolian, Dorian, Phrygian, Locrian. No, those are the chords that are built off of the 7 notes in the collection of notes. Now we're saying, well, what if I want to build a chord off of one of the ocean notes, one of the notes, 5 notes outside the collection? Okay, well, if I do that, then I want to name it in a way that's as easy to name as possible. And if I use the normal naming convention, I would call it something like a C sharp or D flat, major 13. But that really doesn't tell me the point that I want, which is the function of the note that's being played in the song. In other words, if I go back to the fretboard, that means that we're basically moving the entire shape up in order to accommodate this note that I'm playing that's outside the key. I have to revisualize the entire fretboard. I don't want to do that. I want to say, look, I'm just moving this note up to play a chord off of this note, but I'm still in the context of this collection of notes as I'm jamming around, as I'm writing my music. That context, in my opinion, is really important. It's not just that you want to list out exactly what is being played as though it's a machine, and you're not thinking of the context of the song, and you have to guess what the context of the, is he playing in Lydian? Is he playing in mixed Lydian? Which collection of notes? Did he switch collection of notes? No, you should tell them, right? We should be saying, if I moved up here and I'm switching the collection of notes in my mind, then it would be really useful to say, now the song has switched the perspective to the collection of notes that have shifted all the notes up, versus, no, I'm in the same collection of notes, I just happen to be using a chord outside the collection, which will give you some indication as to why I might be doing that, possibly to lead into the next note up here or something like that. So then I'd like to be able to name that then by possibly saying, look, it's an Ionian ocean chord. It's one of the 5 ocean chords, but it has a shape that could be one of our normal 7 shapes, meaning Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, mixed Lydian. You might just call it major or minor, but it's more specific to say it's a Dorian shape than a minor shape, because that's going to give you the indication if you have that interval of that's different on the Dorian, right? Would be like the 13. Okay, that's where we left off last time. So we did it for the Ionian Plus or the Ionian Ocean. Now we're going to continue on and do the majors first and then the minors. And see, this should be easier to do going down now. Let's just double check and make it as easy as possible to copy this down. So if I copy this whole thing down, will this work? This is picking up this up here. Let's see, and that's going to be AF64, AF64. Now I'm going to unformat this for the absolutes. Why would I do that? Because if I copy it down here, it's going to be looking up to this note, and I'll have to change it. So now that this has been copied down and it's done its magic, I'm going to un-F4 it, meaning get rid of the dollar signs on all of this whole column. I'm just going to get rid of the dollar signs, so when I copy it down, all of these will take the relative position and we'll be referring not to this cell, but the relative position as we go down. So that's going to be our strategy to make it as easy as possible from a kind of, I guess, more of a programming perspective or an Excel perspective. Here, what's this? And now these two over here, I'm cool with that because those are going to be remaining the same in terms of the columns that it's being referred to. So those are going to be absolute. That's cool, no problem. And this one is AE64. I think that needs to move as well. So I think those are good. We'll have to adjust it still. And then this one is picking up this information. There's no absolute references on this one. So I've already removed all the absolute references so that we can copy them down. So it should copy down in relative position. This one, we've already removed all the absolute references, should be good. This one doesn't have any absolute references as well, but we'll still have to adjust it so that it picks up the right cell going up top, but I think that is as clean as it can be. This one doesn't have any absolute references except over here, and those are the ranges, so those should be absolutes. So I think that one's good. This one It doesn't have an absolute reference here, but again, it's picking up the ranges as absolutes. I think that should be good. That should be good for us to copy it down. This one is a long, messy thing. I think we fixed this before, however, because it doesn't have absolute references here. It does have the absolutes on the ranges, you can see. So again, I think this whole thing should copy down and not be a problem. This one, we don't have any absolute references here. We do on the ranges, so I think that one is good. And let's see, this one is, now I have an absolute reference here. What is that taking into consideration? That's taking, so I'm using this I plus. That needs to be removed. So now that I've used this absolute reference to copy it down into this cell, because this whole thing wants to refer to that same cell. I don't want it to be copied down when I move it down here. I want all of the cells to be relative to that node up here. So I'm going to unabsolute, because that's going to make it easy for me to copy down to the 4 other of 5 ocean nodes. So I'm going to say F4, F4, F4. This is tedious, but I'm going to just get rid of this. It'll be easier in the long run, I think. If I just go through all of these and remove the dollar signs, I'm just F4ing out the dollar signs. You can delete the dollar signs if you want, either way. And it seems like a tedious thing to do, but I think this is the cleanest way to actually do it, so that when I copy it down, it'll be más fácil, more easy, I think is what that means. More easier. I need it to be more easier than this. So we'll say dut, and then we'll dut, and then go here and go dut, and then here, and we'll go dut, and then we'll go here and dut, and then we'll go here and dut, and then we'll go here, F4, 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 and then we'll go here, F4, 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 and then we'll go here, and F4, F4, F4. Did I do that one right? I feel like that. And we'll go here, 1, 2, 3. We'll make a rhythm out of it. 1, 2, 3. Here, 1, 2, 3, and then here, 1, 2, 3, and then here, 1, 2, 3, and then here, and 1, 2, 3, and then here, and 1, 2, 3, and then here, 1, 2, 3, and then here, 1, 2, 3, and then here, 1, 2, 3, here, 1, 2, 3. I know this is tedious, but again, I think this is the most efficient way to do it. Maybe I'll fast forward through this, but I probably won't, because I won't remember. so if you get the idea, you could fast forward this part, and if you feel like it. But I'm just gonna I'm not gonna skip the process. I'm gonna show you the whole process. This is the pain and agony that I go through on your behalf, for the help of the people, out there. I feel like you need to see this. You need to see my suffering. You need to see my suffering so that you know what okay, how about this one? So this one is, we have a mixed reference, which is going here. So the mixed reference is going here. So that's not moving to the right, but it is moving down. I think that should be good. I think that one should be good. Okay. And then these, I think, are good. All right, I'm going to copy this whole thing down, and let's see if it works. This is the moment of truth. The moment of truth. Okay. Let's see. Paste it down. Ba-bam. Okay. So let's change this. I got to change this. I'm going to make it the mixolydian. I'm going to do all of the, I'm going to do the major ocean notes, or the major oceans first. So I'm going to pick up the mixolydian. Let's go. Oh, wait. No, I'm on the Lydian. Let's go to the Lydian. So that's a Lydian, but I need a Lydian plus. So I'm going to double click on that and say it's going to be the Lydian. And I'm going to say and quotes, a plus sign, end quote. So Lydian plus. Now this populated automatically because the symbol is going to be a Y plus. So that's going to be this Lydian. It's looking up that Lydian. And here, it's looking up the Lydian plus and giving me this Y plus. That's what we want it to do. Move B to the N. All right. Okay, so then that's fine. So let's undo that. And then this is going to be a 4. This, yeah. Well, no, this has got to be, where's this coming from? Let's say this is coming from that 3. It should be coming from this 4 up top. So this should be coming from the 4 up top. So it should be something like this equals this 4. And let me just think about that. That 4 would be a C. And I know that the Lydian, if I'm on the Lydian, it should be an F. And the F is a 10 from a number. So I need to bring this up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up by 6. So I'm going to double click. It should be this plus 6. And that should change it automatically. But I have to make it so it doesn't go over 12. So I'm going to double click on it and say if tab this plus this copy is less than 13, meaning go up to 12 but not over it, comma, do that, but if not, do that minus 12, close it up. So now it comes to 10. And if I make this one, the 4, like if I make it all, everything goes off of this Ionian and I make that an 11, which is a G, then this one goes around the horn to 5, right? So it's going to go to 5. All right, so that's going to be, so I think that works. That distance is always the same for all 12 collections of 7 notes and the ones in the ocean, the 5 ones in the ocean. All right, and then, so, okay, that makes sense. So now I've got 10 here, that makes sense. And then we're going to do the same thing, but this time it's a 7 Lydian ocean Ionian chord. So these all work, right? So now I'm going to say I'm building off of the Lydian ocean. So if I go onto my fretboard here, I'm going to be saying like, okay, what does that mean? That means that if I was building off of this Lydian, like right here, and I said that was a major Lydian shape like this, then I'm going to be building over here in the Lydian ocean. And if I build off the Lydian ocean, I could make the same shape, boom, 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 which would be a major shape, or an Ionian shape would be the default of the major shape. Or if I shift this up, it would be a minor shape, which would be like an Aeolian shape. So instead of me shifting up the entire shape, all the colored notes, so that this will move up here, and I can call it then a Lydian in that collection of notes, I want to be able to say, no, it's a Lydian ocean shape chord. It's a Lydian ocean Ionian shape chord, right? It's a Lydian ocean Ionian chord. So that would be, and that'll allow me to keep playing or tell my reader, look, I haven't switched the collection of notes in my mind. It's the same collection of notes. I'm playing a note that's outside the collection, and I'm building a chord off that note. All right, so that means that if it was the most complicated chord, which we're going to build, the 7-note chords, that would mean it's a 7-note Lydian ocean or a 4.5, because the Lydian is Nashville. Lydian is a. Does that make sense? A Lydian. Yeah, that's right. It's a Lydian. It's a 4.5 chord, right? So it's a 7-note Lydian ocean Ionian shaped chord, or it's a 7-note Lydian ocean or 4.5 7-note Nashville number 4.5 Dorian chord or Nashville number 2 chord. It's a 7-note Lydian ocean Phrygian chord or a 7-note Nashville number 4.5 Nashville shape Dorian chord, or a 7-note Lydian ocean Lydian chord, or a 7-note Lydian 7-note Nashville number 4.5 and shape Nashville number 4 chord, or it's a 7-note Lydian ocean Mixolydian shape chord, 7-note Lydian ocean Aeolian shape chord, 7-note Lydian ocean Locrian shaped chord. Now, if it's only a triad chord, then you can just use these two, or major and minor, right? It's a 7-note Ionian chord, or it's a 7-note Aeolian chord. But if you add any other notes to make it a more complicated note than a 3-note chord, then you can make it more specific by just saying the nodal shape that you're building off of, because that'll give you the intervals that we're building. So that's the simplest way to do it. Okay, so then over here, what is this? The problem here, what's the problem here? It's pulling that, that's correct, but then it's pulling this up here. So I need to pull this from the Lydian. So all I have to do to fix this is go in here and say, okay, this should be pulling from, that's picking that up right there. This number needs to be coming from the Lydian up top. So it needs to be coming from the Lydian up top. So it needs to be this. The 7-note Lydian would normally be, it would be this. So I'm going to say, right, and then, so it would be that. Let's go back down. I think that, and then that needs to also be over here. AL, this needs to be 19 to 17. 19 to 17. So so now it's an F sharp or G flat major 13, which is going to have a flat 11. So that would be the most complicated Lydian shaped chord. So instead of building the Lydian chord off of the Lydian, it's going to be a Lydian shaped chord that's built off of the Lydian ocean. So again, if I was to name it normally, then it would be something like this, right? An F sharp major 13 flat 11 chord. Why don't I just use that? Because if I use that, then if I was trying to build it over here, that would be like, how would I build it from that point? I'd have to actually move the entire shape up in my mind to think about how that fits in here, right? So it doesn't give me any context within the song. Like if I throw that chord into a song that's in this shape and I throw this in there, the context of the song doesn't tell me, hey, look, this is a chord outside of the shape that I'm visualizing my piece to be in. You have to just guess that it's outside the shape, right? That shouldn't be, right? You should tell them that information. It's important information. It shouldn't be guesswork to see, like I see what you're doing there. I should tell you what I'm doing. Yeah, you see what I'm doing because I'm trying to be as clear as possible about what I'm doing, right? So this would be a Dorian. So the Dorian would be here, and so I'm going to change this to 44. So now we're going to say this would be a 7-note Lydian ocean Dorian shaped chord. So it would be a minor 13. So from a normal construction, so it would be an F sharp minor 13. So then this one's going to be, if I change this would be a 7-note Lydian ocean Phrygian chord. So I'm going to go up and say, okay, where's the Phryg? Right there, boom. But then I have to change the other side of it too. This needs to be AL53 to match. Whoop, AL53. So now this is a F sharp minor flat 13, flat 9 if it was a 7-note chord that has a Phrygian construction, because the Phrygian construction has that minor 13 and it has a minor second or minor 9, right? So if I go back into this one, this is going to be a 7-note Lydian chord. So I'm just going to change the second bit to pull on the normal Lydian dynamic. The Lydian up top is here, so it would be that, boom. And then we'll change the second bit to be 17. Okay, so now it's an F sharp major 13 flat 11, because if it's a Lydian chord, sharp 11, it has an augmented 11. So then this one's going to be a 7-note Lydian Mixolydian chord. So Mixolydian shape, 7-note Lydian ocean chord with a Mixolydian shape. So I'm going to just change this one. The normal Mixolydian would be up top, and we're going to say, all right, Mixolyd would be Donde right there, just a G13, because we have the Mixolydian formatting, and then this one's going to be 26. All right, so just be an F sharp or G flat 13, and this one's going to be a 7-note Lydian ocean Aeolian shaped chord. So I'm going to say, all right, now I'm just going to say the normal Aeolian shape, if it was a 7-note chord, would be up top for the Aeolian. Would be that. And I need to change the other side of it, which is 35. Boom. So it'd be an F sharp or G flat minor flat 13, because the Aeolian, even though it's the main minor, has a flat 13 on it. And then the Locrian. Don't forget the crazy Locrian. That one actually was correct already. It's right there. Boom. That one didn't even need to be doing nothing to that one. All right, so that one looks good. All right, and then so now I'm going to do the complex thing, which is to map out the modal points. So remember, the problem here is that if it was a scale degree system that we were using, then I would just make this point the 1 and call the points from a scale degree 1, 3, 5, 7. The problem with that, if I go back to the fretboard, that means we're moving up the entire shape up here. So we don't want to do that. I want to keep the relative numbering system from the perspective that we are in. Now, normally that's easy to do because I can just say, look, I'm not going to change the numbers. I'm going to keep them the same and measure distance in modal half steps, meaning how many steps does it take of the 7-note collection. Works great if you're building a chord off of one of the 7 notes in the 7-note collection. But if you're not, then you can't measure from a note that's outside the measuring point, right? So that's going to be the problem. What do we do instead? We can still name the points, but we have to name them and figure them out by half steps. So the half step distance to pick them up. All right. So where's this coming from? This is looking up here. That's wrong. And then this is going and picking these columns up. Okay. So is there a way I can fix this as easily as possible? So I need to fix the first bit to pick it up to the right note, and then I have to change the ranges. So it might be easier just to build it out again. Let's just do the whole thing again. This is where it gets messy. So let's just delete this and say, okay, normally if it was a 7-note Lydian and it was a Ionian plus chord, then it would be equal to, you know what? It would have been better if I had those absolute, because this is going to be, let me just think about the best way to do this. This is going to be pulling, where's this pulling from? This is pulling from that Ionian. That needs to be the same. That's actually going to be the same. So if I make that absolute, that might make it easier. So I'm going to make that absolute maybe. So the one in AM, I'm going to make that absolute. So I'm going to F4 that one, go here, F4 that one. So this will actually, because those need to be the same, and that'll make it easier going down. So once again, the tedium is happening, but once we do this, then it will make it easier to copy them down to all of the 4 ocean perspective note chords. All right, so let's just absolutize the first reference on all these formulae, and then we will be half the battle, because formalizing it is half the battle. That's what G.I. Joe would say if he was an Excel professional. The formatting is half the battle. Okay, so let's do this all the way down. And here we go. Yo. Here we go. Yo. Almost there. Not quite. I mean, I still got a ways to go. It's too early to say almost there. You say almost there, at this point, the kids in the back seat are gonna get pissed because it's like you weren't even close to be saying almost there. Okay, now maybe it's a legitimate claim to say I'm almost there because I only got one more stretch of highway before we're at the destination. We're almost there, people. We're almost there. We're going to the diner. There's our favorite restaurant once we get out of the desert here. It's going to be great. Get some waffles for dinner. Okay, let's copy this down now. I'm going to copy this and paste it down here. Okay, so now this is coming from that one. That looks correct. But this is referring to these. And what I need it to be doing now is have a whole nother set that are going to be for the Lydian Ocean, because it needs to be the Lydian Ocean that we're going to be matching up to it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let's do that, and then I'm going to add some cells here. Insert. I'm going to select these bad doggies. Right click and insert. Select those bad doggies. I'm not going to shock them. I'm not a horrible person. It's going to shock them, shock the bad doggies. I'm just going to do that. And then, all right, so I'm going to do the Lydian next. So I'm going to copy this whole thing right here, and I'm going to place it, shifting it down compared to this column for the Lydian. So I'll paste it like right here to start with. Make it a little larger. Why is it giving me a problem? Why are you giving me a problem like this? Okay, something weird happened. All right, it's still just not, I double clicked and it's still not, there we go. And then I'm gonna make this one shorter. So these all need to be the same distance. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to move this down to 4.5. So this is the one I'm focused on right there. So that needs to line up to this one. So it's like, okay, I just need to take this whole thing. I'm going to move it down. Just going to take this whole thing. I'm going to shift it down until that line. Oh, dang it. Let's cut and paste. That's easier. I'm just going to cut, Control X, and then I'll put it like there. Does that line up? That one, oh, look at that, perfectly. I thought I was just guessing. Lines up to the 4.5. All right. All right. Okay. So now, I think that works. Let's go back on over here. And now I just double click on this and say, this one is cool, but this needs to be over here to the Ionian on here. And I'm going to shift this down so it's at the same level. All right, boom, boom. So that should return to me a 4.5. Bam. There it is. So let's copy that across now. And so does that make sense? So if I'm doing a Lydian progression from here. So in other words, let's count it out over here. If I make this from the Lydian, if I make this like the 1, right? So now I'm going to say I'm at the 4.5, and the Lydian is a major. So therefore, the next one up should be how many half steps away to get to the third? 4 half steps away. So 1, 2, 3. So if I go 4 half steps this way, 4 half steps up, this is the distance that we're going, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 should get me to 6.5. Is that what we have over here? No. Something went horribly, horribly wrong. Oh, wait, I know what went wrong now. Now I've got an absolute reference here. Now I've got an absolute reference. Dang it. So now what's the problem? Now this absolute reference is working against me now. It needs to be a relative reference so that it could move. So now I'm just going to F4 this whole I'm just going to F4 this off now and then copy it across. Boom. That works. But now when I copy it down to the next one, okay, that works. Let's stick with that for now. Okay, so now it should be to 6.5. Let's check it out over here. So if we're at 4.5, goes up. If we go up, let's copy this down, up 4 half steps, it gets to 6.5. If I go up 7 half steps, which is a perfect fifth, I should be at 1.5. So that's going to be 1.5. Right, that makes sense. And if I go up 7, 8, 9 half steps, I should be at the 2.5. So that's going to be 9 half steps, 1.5 to 4. If I go up 9 half steps. So if I go up 4 half steps, that's going to be a major third. And then I go 7 half steps is going to be a perfect fifth. And then fifth, the seventh is going to be for the Lydian 11 half steps. There it is, the 4. That makes sense. Okay, so that's the 4. That makes sense. All right, I think it's working. So now let's do the same thing for this one. So where's this coming from? So if I go over here and say, okay, I just need to now pull this in to the Dorian side. So I'm just going to pull this. I lost it. I'm going to pull this one over. So this is a Dorian chord off of this point. So I'm just going to pull this over to the Dorian, and I'm going to pull this down. Actually, let's pull it down to the same starting point. It's going to start at that 4.5. Boom. Enter. Okay. And then I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to un-F4 this. Absolute reference. F4, F4, F4. Copy it across. And boom. That's going to be a Dorian node. So notice that the first is the same, 4.5, but then it goes up to 6 instead of 6.5 because it's only 3 notes up to get to the minor third. And then this is the same, and then the 7 is a minor 7, and then the 9 is actually the same because it's the Dorian, which has the same 9, and then the 11 is the same because it's the perfect fourth equivalent, and the 13 is the same because it has the same 13. Yeah, I think I got that right. Yeah, the same 9. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so then let's do the next one. So now I'm going to do that all the way down. I'm just going to adjust these all the way down. So now I'm on the Phrygian. So if I double click here and go, okay, Phrygian, and I go over here, this should be pulled over to this Phrygian right there, but I want it to line up to that 4. So right there. And then for this one, I'll pull this one down to there, and then boom. And then that one should be good. And then I un-F4 the front bit, F4, 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 and pull it across. Ba-bam. Okay, and then I double click this one. This one's going to be the Lydian. Let me fix this over here first before I forget. So this should have the name. We're building off of the Lydian Ocean. Okay. So now I'm going to be over here, and I'm going to double click here. So now we're going Lydian to Lydian. I just need to pull this second bit. I can pull this down to here to the 4.5, and this needs to go to Lydian column over here. So Lydian column needs to go match out that one. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And then I'm going to double click and F4, 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 enter, pull it across. Okay, I'll check them in a second, but let's just finish this process. I'll go into this one. This is going to be the Mixolydian. So I'm just going to say, all right, Let's pull this one down again to the starting point, 4.5. I need to bring it to this mixolydian. So oh, I lost it. Back down. Go back into this one. Okay, try it again. And I want to pull this over here to the Lydian. Is that what I was on, Lydian? That was the mixolydian. Should be the mixolid. Should be over here. Boom. Okay, that makes sense. And then we double click on that. F4, F4, F4. And then I'm going to copy it across. Okay, and then double click this one. And this is going to be the Aeolian. So I'm just going to bring this one down to there. And this one needs to be to there, but on the Aeolian column. On this side, Aeolian, enter. And then I'm going to go into this one and say F4, 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 enter, copy it across, and uno vez mas for the Locrian. So Locrian needs to be down here, grab it down to there, and then this, I'm going to grab this and bring it all the way to the end. So I'm going to grab it, bring it down to there, and then over here, boom. Okay, and then I'm going to double click on that and say F4, 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 copy that across. Okay, so let's just double check this now. So this was the Dorian chord. This is a Phrygian chord, so that should be similar to the Dorian. Let's do the Aeolian first. The Aeolian chord is down here. It should be different from the Ionian in that the first one is the same. The second modal half step or third scale degree is only 3 notes away. Therefore, it's at a 6 instead of a 6.5. The fourth modal half step fifth scale degree is the same. It should be 7 notes away. The sixth modal half step seventh scale degree is different because it's a 10 note away for the minor instead of the 11 note away major. And then we have the 8 modal half step ninth scale degree is going to be the same because that's going to be like the major second. And then we have the 10th modal half step 11th scale degree, which is the same because it's like a perfect fourth. So it's the same for each. And then the 12 modal half step 13th scale degree, where the minor is different because it has a minor 13, which is equivalent to the minor 6, which is going to be 8 notes away instead of 9. Now, if we compare this one, which is the Phrygian, to this one, we can see to the Aeolian, then obviously they're going to have the same starting point. The second modal half step third scale degree is going to be the same because now they're both minor thirds. And then the fourth modal half step fifth scale degree is the same because most of them have that 7 note away perfect fifth. And then the sixth modal half step seventh scale degree is going to be the same because they both are minors now, which is 10 note away minor distance on the seventh or sixth modal half step. Eighth modal half step ninth scale degree is going to be the same distance away. No, the eighth modal half step or ninth scale degree is different because that's where the Phrygian has a minor 1 note away distance as opposed to even the Aeolian having a major or 2 note away distance. And then the 10 modal half step 11th scale degree, they have the same number because that would be a perfect fourth. And then we have the end point 12th modal half step 13th scale degree, which they have the same because they both have a minor 6th 8 note away distance. Now, if I look at this one, Lydian should be like should be similar to the Ionian. So they have the 0 modal half step first scale degree is the same. Second modal half step third scale degree is the same 4 note away distance now because we're comparing major to major. And then the fourth modal half step fifth scale degree, it's going to be a 7 note away distance. So that's going to be the same on most of them except this one down here that we can see. That makes sense. And then the 6th modal half step 7th scale degree, then we have the same distance for that one because it has a major distance because we have a Lydian and Ionian 11 notes away instead of 10. The minor would be 10. And then we have the 8th modal half step 9th scale degree where we have the same distance. And that's because the 9 is equivalent to the 2, which has a local distance of 2 notes away, and the 10th modal half step 11th scale degree. And we have a difference here because the Lydian has an augmented 4th or augmented 11th. So that makes sense. But when we get to the 12th modal half step or 13th degree, it's going to be the same because we have the major 13 or major 6, which is a 9 note away distance instead of 8. So then we have the Mixolydian, which again we can compare to the Ionian. So the 0 note away first modal half step is the same. Second modal half step, 3rd scale degree is going to be a 4 note away distance. It's the same as the Ionian. And the 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, also the same. It's a 7 note away distance. But the 6th modal half step, 7th scale degree, that's where the Mixolydian is different than the Ionian, because it has a distance of a minor 10 note away distance instead of a major 11 note away distance. And then we have the same for the 8 modal half step, 9 scale degree, same for the 10th modal half step, 11 scale degree, same for the 12th modal half step, 13th scale degree, and the Aeolian we checked out, and then the Locrian is going to be similar to the minor, but have a difference on, if I compare it to the minor, we have a difference here, 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, because it has a flat 5, and we have a difference here because even the main minor has a major 2nd or a major 8th modal half step. This is going to be similar to the Phrygian. So that all makes sense, I think. So then this pulls in properly to give us the modal points. Now again, this is going to be hard to do mathematically, but it is something that you can memorize, because if you were to look at normal triads that are built off the ocean notes and you memorize the notes that are the nodal points, then that could be more worth doing than memorizing the actual notes of normal chords. Why? Because they will at least be the same. All those relative positions will be the same for all 12 collections of 7 notes. So if you were to memorize these points for the chords built off of the 5 ocean notes, then they would be transferable to all 12 collections of 7 notes. Whereas if you were to memorize the notes in a chord, they will differ for every collection of notes, right? So okay. So anyways, these are going to be the modal points. I think that's mapping out properly. And then we've got the note half steps, which are taking the difference, meaning it's looking this up and then it's looking that up, getting the relative position and subtracting out to give us the half steps. It's an ugly formula that's doing that, but there it is, a long formula at least. It's a beautiful formula, but long. And then here, this is gonna give us the interval distance. So we have the same interval distances. So these are just the normal interval distances for the shape of the chord: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian. Same with the modal distance. These distances, once again, are giving us the distance that you have to kind of think of in half steps, which I always put up front, meaning it's a 7 note away, Lydian ocean 4 modal half step chord. The 7 is going to be the thing that's most important, because you can't really measure these off of modal half steps or scale degrees if you're using permanent mode numbers, which is what we would like to do preferably. So then these are going to be the actual notes. Okay. So then if we put these into these categories, the categories are the same. It's just that now we're building off of a different note. So in other words, I'm just saying we're building an ocean note, and we're either building an Ionian or a Dorian or a Phrygian shape, and so on. So if we're building an Ionian shape and it's a 7 note chord, it'll fit in the major bucket. If we're building a Dorian shape off of it, then the normal naming construction would be in the minor bucket. If we're building a Phrygian shape, then it would be a minor, but if it's a 7 note chord, it would be in the minor extension bucket. If we're building a Lydian shape, then it would be a major kind of chord, but it would be in the major extension bucket. If we're building a Mixolydian shape and it's more than 3 notes, then it's going to be in its own dominant 7 bucket. And if we're building an Aeolian shape and it has that last 13 in it, it's not going to be in the minor bucket because you actually need an extension. So it's going to be in the minor extension. And if you're building a Locrian shape and it's more than 3 notes, then it's going to have its own bucket of a half diminished bucket. Notice that this naming convention is just it doesn't really give you the context, right? Again, if I name this chord in the context of the 7-note collection around the key of C, then and I don't tell you this collection of notes that I'm in, then again, this is going to make it look like it's going to muddy up what collection of notes that I'm in. It's going to muddy up the perspective. You're going to have to then say, well, I'm a genius, I'm a scholar, and I figured out that even though he's using this chord that's outside the 7-note collection, that he's actually in the 7-note collection around the key of C, right? You shouldn't have to do that. It should be in the song. You should be able to, like, writing it this way doesn't give you the context. You should be able to say, look, this is the collection of notes I'm in, and this note that I'm playing is outside the collection from the perspective that I'm viewing my composition within, which is the way almost everyone views the music. So you might as well write it down in a way that you can present that. That's what it seems like to me. Okay, so next time we'll continue on, but I'm going to copy this one down because this one has the absolute references and this one we removed them. So I'm going to copy this one down next time and see if we can get through maybe the rest of them next time now that we have the format down, but maybe we'll just do one at a time because this took forever.